Peace and African excellence. Welcome to another Truth to Power Talk with your sister, Dr. Ma'at. Before we get today's discussion started, I want to show you all our new website for the Conscious Ingenuity Institute family. So now we have all of our programs housed in one area. So all you have to do to access these programs, head on over to consciousingenuityinstitute.org. I repeat, consciousingenuityinstitute.org. And family, I'm telling you, I'm scrolling down. I just want you to see all of our programs. We have a STEAM program. STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art, agriculture, mathematics, called Conscious Ingenuity. And if you click on this link, you'll meet the co-founders. You'll also meet the entire team. And as you see, is a team of young Black engineers from HBCUs across the country going into our community, teaching STEAM, inspiring our children to get involved in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, art, agriculture, and mathematics, family. If you keep on scrolling down, you have access to the virtual UACI STEM camp. That is the Uhuru Academy, Conscious Ingenuity STEM camp, co-founded by myself and Baba Amin. Salute to the Uhuru Academy. We have a virtual STEM camp. And I told you all a while ago when we first got this thing started back in 2022, I said slots are going to fill up fast. Make sure that your child doesn't miss out on this opportunity. This camp is being backed by the CAP Center, which is a cybersecurity center, a big cybersecurity research center housed at Morgan State University. All right, and now look, we got 50 kids coming this summer, and we only have 10 slots for. We just had 10 slots left. I don't even want to say what it's for. It could be previous students or new students, but I'm telling you, get your children involved in this movement, in this STEAM movement. Also, family, we have the ASAFO training camp. This is our all boys camp that focuses on manhood development and young boys between the ages of 12 and 14. They're with us for a week. The registration is now open. We only have 20 slots, and I'm telling you, these 20 slots are going to fill up fast. So get your young warrior enrolled in this camp ASAP. And then lastly, family, we have the Agoji training camp. This is going to be our second iteration of the Agoji camp, which is a camp that focuses on womanhood development and young girls between 12 and 14. Registration is open. We only have 20 slots for this particular camp as well. Make sure you get your young Gogoji, your young warrior in this camp, family. And again, all you have to do is go to consciousingenuity.org. And guess what? Let me drop this in the chat. For you and also put it on the screen. Consciousingenuity.org. Hold on. Should have had it ready for your family. Consciousingenuity.org. Here it is. And I'm going to put it on the screen for your family. Put it on the screen for you. So there we go. Head on over to consciousingenuity.org to access these programs, these youth empowerment programs. All right, y'all. So without further ado, and let me get this off the screen. Without further ado, I'm going to bring to you a mighty, mighty warrior scholar and a BINFO, a doctor. She has her PhD in Afroecology. I had the honor of meeting her a couple of weeks ago at the Dr. John Henry Clark Enhancement Project. It was the unveiling of it with Baba Anthony T. Browder. So I was down in D.C. and it was a beautiful, beautiful event and or unveiling. And we got an opportunity to see it. I believe it's going to be opened up to the public within the next week or two. But I took my son down there and we had an opportunity to meet Dr. Epha. And she spoke about her maps. She has some maps that show the Black slave revolts, family. And so, when I saw her work, I was thoroughly impressed. I was impressed with that. I was impressed with her visuals. I was impressed with her knowledge of African resistance. And see, a lot of people, a lot of children right now, because we give them that watered down, that whitewashed history, they look at our ancestors as weak, as cowards, as soft. And now you have this movement. You have this movement now growing on the internet where you have young people distancing themselves from their African ancestors. Come on, family. Distancing themselves from their African ancestors saying, I'm not my ancestor. They actually have t-shirts out there, family, that says, I'm not my ancestors. I'll do this. I'll kick your tail. I ain't my ancestors. As if our ancestors were weak. But that is because they are ignorant of resistance, of our resistance. They're ignorant of it, family. And see, that's why we have to teach our history and teach our full history to our babies. Ashe. And I see the Maadi family coming in. Peace and love to your brother Dijon Ford. I see Brad in the building. Brad, I see you, family. I see you. I saw you in here last week. I see Huey in the building. Peace and love to you. T. Huey, TL Huey is in the building. Who else we got? Sister Jessie is in the building. She said, this is Miss Jessie wishing all grand rising evening. I see Mika's in the building. Peace and love to you, Mika. I always love to see you in the chat, Queen. All right, y'all, let's get busy. Peace and black excellence.
Let's combat and fight back with MELTREK. The war of the minds, they want control of the masses. And Common Core, they dumb us down in the classes. Without knowledge, we can't gain access. Build with the elders, take notes and write classes. We keep whining on the block, how it's gonna stop? Let's start supporting our own, make their supply drop. We buy stocks, then we buy blocks. Cause we know the truth and we tuned in to Dr. Maya.
A BB Fahodie, a BB Toomey, a BB Wan. Peace to all of my thinkers, truth seekers, and truth speakers. Welcome to another Truth to Power Talk with your sister, Dr. Ma'at. Thank you for joining another powerful discussion. And tonight I have with me another powerful guest, Dr. Epha. Peace and love to you, Doctor. How are you doing this evening?
Fine, thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. I appreciate you joining the podcast. I know I reached out to you. I was trying to get you like 2 weeks ago. And you said, no, sister. You said, I'm a little busy. But I say, look, you're going to be available in 2 weeks. You said, I got you. And so I do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be with me and my listeners tonight. Family, right now, take a moment to thumb up this video, okay? Also, share this video, family. Share it. We want to each one teach one. And how do you do that in the 21st century? You just simply share it on social media or drop the link in a text group, right? All of us have these group chats now. So take the link to this video, drop it in your text message groups and post it on social media. Let everybody know that Dr. Ma'at is live. And also, family, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so that whenever I go live, you will be notified. And as a matter of fact, I see the IG family coming in. Peace and love to the IG family. I see you, Yolanda. I see you, Dennis. I see you, D. Dan. I see the family in the building on IG. Look, my IG family, I want you to head on over to YouTube. If you head on over to YouTube, I'll be able to show your comments on the screen, okay? So head on over to YouTube, type your comments in the chat so that I can post them, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I'm speaking to my IG family. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, family, make sure that you check out my Truth to Power Talk playlist. I brought on a lot of our greats. I had Dr. Malefe Asante on, Dr. Wade Nobles, Dr. Darity, Dr. Julie Yan. I had Dr. Tony Browder on. I had Professor James Small, Dr. Kaba Kamene, and Wally Mu Baruti. I had the Barudis on. I had Ashwa Kwesi. I've had on all our greats, okay? And so, family, make sure that you go into the archives and that you check out those Truth to Power Talk playlists. Queen Mother, I had to say this, and I had to say this to you. And I want to start off by asking you, we're going to talk about African resistance, but are you aware of the hands-off rallies that took place yesterday? The hands-off rallies that took place across the United States yesterday. I've been looking at the footage on YouTube and on Instagram, and thousands of people, they were out there protesting against Trump and Elon because of the policies that they are dismantling and also passing. And so I just wanted to ask you really quickly, because I think that this all ties into resistance. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on the hands-off rally. And I also did notice this too, before you answer. I noticed that there wasn't a strong Black presence there either, you know, and so I wanted to talk to you about that, Dr. Epha.
No.
What are you
Black people saying this is not our fight. We tried to tell you people not to vote for them, but you didn't listen. So this is your fight. So, and also we know how Trump is. And I think that he's trying to bait Black people, especially with this discussion of closing down the African American History Museum. I think he's really trying to bait us to get us to get into the street so he can declare national martial law
Mm-hmm.
and call in the forces. So, so we're not responding. And I'm not so sure. There was a lot of people on the street, but then I'm also looking at just 2 weeks ago, he had a rally and there were a lot of people in support of him. So I'm not quite sure if everybody is on the same page as in terms of opposing him.
Mm.
I'm
Mm.
I'm not
You
really.
don't think everybody? Yeah, and so I do hear you when you said black folks are saying, look, we told you, black folks, 92% of black people voted for Kamala. They did, Kamala just recently came out with a video and she was like, I hate to say told you so. And she was like, and so I mean, he's doing everything that she said he was going to do. I mean, he's doing everything he said he was going to do.
Right.
So I didn't even understand why you had people, that ran out and voted for him. And so I'm of the opinion, and I feel black folks. Black folks are saying, look, we did what we were supposed to do. We voted, we voted for the lesser, and we knew what she was going to do, and we knew what he was going to do. And we told you, and you had the whites and the Latinos, which they actually helped them get in office, And so black folks are saying, your problem, you fix it. Now, let me ask you this, because I was speaking to my mom about this, and she said that she feels like black people still should do something because she said at the end of the day, these policies are still impacting us as well. So what's your thought on that? Because I kind of see both. I see both sides. So what do you think about that, Dr. Epha?
Well, yeah, I think we should do something, but the thing is the what. We have to be very strategic. I think what we're doing against Target and Amazon and is really powerful. But I think our next steps, we need to just think it through. In terms of us running out in the street protesting, I'm not sure if that's the way to go. Because, of course, after the Black Lives Matters movement, most of the states passed legislation allowing civilians to attack protesters. In Oklahoma, they say you can drive, and they specify you are allowed to drive your pickup truck into the crowd. Okay. And you will be immune from any prosecution. Yeah. So I don't know if that's the way we should go. But yes, I think, this is going to be a protracted struggle. We're going to have a chance to do something. I think right now we're just kind of watching and waiting. Of course, we're affected. We're always the most affected. And
absolutely.
I mean, we've been through bad presidents before. And unfortunately, the weight is going to fall on the most impoverished Americans. They're going to suffer the most behind this. But we have to wait and see.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Dr. Epha. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And that is a good segue into my next question. Do you feel like we, and I'm talking about Africans in America, black people, right? Do you feel like we have inspired, resistance? Like we are, like we have provided the blueprint for resistance when it comes to other oppressed groups across the world, even in America? Do you feel like they use our blueprint?
Of course. Which is a good segue into my shameless plug for my second map.
Talk about it.
So I was working on the slave revolts map for a couple of years, and I was applying for a grant to enhance that map. And then at the last minute, I was like, Dr. Ma, I can't take another slave revolt. I can't take it. And so I applied for a grant to do anti-colonial and civil rights movements, 1944 to 1994, which dates the so-called end of apartheid. So that map is also on my website. And yes, indeed, what Black people did, not only here in America with the civil rights movement, but we have to also look at the labor movements. That's where we started, really go back into the 1930s. Yes, we gave the blueprint for resistance for the world. I mean, we laid it out, and all groups after that, the peace movement, the women's movement, even the anti-apartheid movement, all stemmed from our protest to imperialism.
Absolutely, absolutely, and yeah, we like you said, we gave the blueprint. They
Yeah.
other groups watched us and said, "Let's do that." And I just I look at even when they just a few months ago, the Latina community, the Hispanic and Latino community, they had a big march, against the immigration policies, and they were doing things, and I just kept looking. I said, "This looks very, very familiar, right? This looks very, very familiar." We laid the blueprint and other groups follow it and they watch it and they study it. And so anyway, I wanted to bring you on because as I stated prior to the beginning of the show or this discussion, there's a movement going on right now on social media. There are young people. This has been going on for a few years now, and I've sat and I've watched it. And they have T-shirts out. And a matter of fact, I'll make sure that I show the family some of these T-shirts while you're explaining some things. But there is a movement going on, movement amongst young people happening where they're trying to distance themselves from our ancestors. They're saying things like, I'm not it's a T-shirt. I'm going to show you all. There are T-shirts out there that say things like, I'm not my ancestors. I kick your butt. I ain't my ancestors. I fight back. And and every time I see it on social media, and I'm only one person, I see it on social media. I'm in the comment section and I say, come on, y'all. Like, this is an ignorant statement to think that your ancestors did not fight back. Your ancestors were fighting before we got on these shores. Let's talk about that. Before we got on the shores, all along the coast in Africa, everywhere there was oppression, we were fighting. And so a lot of people are ignorant of this history. And they're ignorant of the history because our history of resistance, our culture of resistance has not been taught. Black people actually, not only do we have a history of resistance, we have a culture of resistance. Right. And so there are people who are ignorant of this. And so they say things like, I ain't my ancestors. I kick your tail. I don't turn the other cheek like my ancestors. This ain't the civil rights movement days. They say things like that. Yeah, and I land my plane with this, Dr. Epha. They're even going further than that. You have platforms headed by so-called people that look like us, right? Skin folk. Right, not kinfolk, but definitely skin folk who are saying Harriet Tubman didn't exist. They're saying Nat Turner didn't exist. They're feeding this to our young people, saying that these people did not exist. They are fictitious characters. This is the information, or I should say disinformation, that our young people are being inundated with. And so it's important for scholars like you and myself to stand up and teach this history. So when I saw your map, when you showed me your map, you showed us your map, right? When you showed us your map, I said, oh God, I got to get this sister on the platform so she can talk about African resistance and give people a tool, give people a visual, give people something that they can go to and learn and teach our young people. So that is why I brought you on, Queen Mother. So can we talk about the resistance that took place on the continent, in the Caribbean, and through North America? You have the floor, Queen Mother. Please. Do you want me to show the map or?
Yeah. Can you?
Yes, ma'am. There you go.
Oh, so people can see it. Okay, great. Well, I like how you said the resistance before, because I think one major myth is that Africans were complicit. All Africans were complicit in the extraction of African people from the continent. And what I say is we need to define what complicity means. And there's a good book by Anne Farrow and some of her colleagues called Complicity that even explores other myths of the so-called slave trade. I hate calling it that. But when we say complicity, even Henry Louis Gates, who is one of the most liberal, mild-mannered historians, says he comes up with a figure of 40% of the Africans were complicit. I don't know how he came up with that number. However, what did that 40% mean? Number one, we're talking about a period of 400 years. So there are all kinds of things. There's really only one country whose entire economy was based on the so-called slave trade. That's Benin. And the rest of the continent, we got 54 countries now, they were not, their economy was not based on slave trade. It had gotten to the point that if the chiefs did not comply, they were either killed or exiled. And I just found out a few weeks ago, one of them was sent to Barbados. They had a king that was sent there. They just sent him out and did what they wanted to do. And also the Europeans instigated warfare between different groups so that they could capture people. So that term complicity, we really have to look at it. But just because, even if we go with the 40%, does that make the entire continent of Africa complicit? You know, we have to look at America. What percentage of the population is involved in drug trade? Does that make the entire country drug lords? No, you can't do that. So first we have to look at that myth. So yes, there was warfare and different things going on the African continent before the European came. Actually, we need to step back a little further to the Arabs. You know, the Arabs came in first and started taking African people out and enslaving them. And then the Europeans came in and they internationalized the slave trade. Now, if you look at the map, and if you're at home, you can look at my map, where you can just go online and open it yourself, blackslaverevolts.org. You'll see the blue ships right here. There are over 500 documented revolts that took place on ships. And that's by the research of, I would say, Eric Taylor in his book, If We Must Die.
Say that one more time, Queen Mother. There were 500. Say that one more time. I want people to really hear that.
These 500 documented. And even when I say documented, I'm talking only in English. All right, because we don't know. The Portuguese, the Dutch, the French, all right, the Spanish, all of them were involved. And so it would take those scholars, those Black scholars in that area, in those countries with those languages, to go through that. So these are just the ones. And also we had a major problem with pirates. The pirates wanted the ships. They didn't really want the Africans. They just wanted the ships. So sometimes they set them free. Sometimes they killed them. Sometimes they took them back. So we don't know about those revolts. And then there was another group called interlocutors who would just go and attack the ships and steal the Africans and sell them. So there were all kinds of revolts. So these are the only ones that we know of that the captains of the ships actually documented. So that would be 500.
And
so
Queen Mother, I want to just interject really quickly. In this book by Dr. Gwendolyn Hall, and this is a a European woman who wrote a book entitled Slavery and African Ethnicities in the Americas. She said that the English kept the worst records. So you're telling me that you understand where I'm going, Dr. Epha? You're saying that it was 500 that the English documented, and they kept the worst records. In fact, she said it was actually the French that kept the best records. If you want to go through and really understand what took place and understand, especially concerning African ethnicities, she was saying that the French documents were the richest. It was the French. So it's crazy to me when I'm listening to you saying 500 was in English, and they said the English people, they kept the worst records out of the European nations. That's what I'm saying.
That's sad.
Yeah.
So out of the 500, what I did was I identified 100 that I said were successful. Well, how did I determine success? Those are the ones where the Africans killed the entire crew or they got away. That's it.
So that was your measure of success. Yeah. Either the entire crew was killed, and you're talking about during the Middle Passage, correct?
Well, let's go to the map. 70% of those revolts took place along the coast. And I think this is really pivotal for African people to understand, because we have in our mind this whole abandonment thing that our ancestors were just giving us away. Here, just get on the ships, just go. And that's not what happened. They were fighting tooth and nail to stop it and return people. So most of them occurred right on the coast of Africa. And the way I did this was there's over about 150 what they call castles, or places where they held Africans before they boarded the ships. So I approximated the distance from the castle to the water to kind of get a more precise long and lat of where those revolts took place. And most of them were right here in Africa. Okay. Then, of course, you have your Middle Passage. And also, this is also very important going into East Africa, right off of Madagascar, to show that Africans were taken from the entire continent. That's something else we don't understand. And always to point to the work by Dr. Joseph Harris at Howard University. If you just Google African Diaspora Map by Joseph Harris, you will see that Africans were taken everywhere, Australia, into Asia, all over the place. And they weren't just coming from the West Coast. A large majority of them did, but they came from the entire continent. Okay, so moving right along. So as you look at the map, what you'll see is what I did was, I'm a very visual person. I think I'm a documentarian, kind of. I did a short documentary called Africa's Not a Zoo on the displacement of African people for game parks. You know, because everybody's always talking about the big five. And I'm like, big five, you elephants? I think there are people who live there, you know? So as I was working on this, the tech, it just came to me. That's why I think it's ancestral driven. I said, you know, I really would like to do something on slave revolts. And they said, well, why don't you do a map? I'm like, a map? Yeah. And they showed me how to do a Google map. And that's where I got my start. Beautiful. So I'm saying all like to say I'm very visual, because if you open each marker, every marker has images. Many have animations or video. But they all have a visual, right?
Yes.
And then the most important part, and then I have, of course, text that tells you about that particular revolt. And then at the bottom, I have my citations. These are because I did not want to compromise the scholarship of this project, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is not just a Google map that tells you where the restaurant is and what the menu is.
No,
right?
No. You wanted to keep it scholarly.
Right. So everyone that you open will give you that information. And then, of course, I have a color-coded red, black, and green. Red, of course, is for the 1800s. That's when you have most of your revolts. And yellow is up to the 1900s. Now, this is something else, because everybody says, okay, all right, slavery ended 1865. Oh, the African slave trade ended 1808, according to the U.S. Constitution. However, we have evidence of Africans being taken out of the continent all the way up past the 1900s. So I take this map up to the 1940s, especially in this area of Eastern Africa. We have Africans being taken into Saudi Arabia, Libya, up into this area by the Arabs. Yeah, there's no definitive date for the end. So I stopped at 1944 for another reason, is because then you move into anti-colonial wars. And anti-colonial wars are different. You can say that the conditions under slavery and colonialism are alike. Yes, there are in many respects. However, the resistance is different. So I had to separate it, because the major difference is during enslavement, if there was a revolt, say in one of the islands, Guyana, for instance, what would happen is the French, the British, the Dutch would come in to assist, right? They will always pull together when it comes down to repressing Black people, right? And that's something that we don't see with the anti-colonial wars.
And Queen Mother, I want to do this really quickly because I just looked it up in the book. When I said they keep the worst records, I just want to be clear because I don't want someone to go back. Dr. Bod, I grabbed the book. It didn't say that. I want to be clear. She was saying that the English kept the worst records. If you were a person trying to understand African ethnicities that were involved in the transatlantic kidnapping trade, she was saying that they kept the worst records. If you're trying to understand African ethnicities, that's actually on page 34. So I just wanted to clarify that when I said they kept the worst records in regards to African ethnicities. Also, Queen Mother, on your map, I noticed this, that if you look in the Caribbean, there are a lot of rebellions. I'm looking right south of Florida. And there were a lot of rebellions right there in the Caribbean. And I just want to ask you if this is if what I'm getting ready to say is correct. Not only because it was terrible conditions in the Caribbean, on those sugar plantations, they were, I think they said the lifespan once you got on the island was like maybe 3 years or something like that. But they said the conditions were horrible. But I'm looking at your map and I'm looking at places like Jamaica. You have Martinique, you have Saint Dominique, and you have Barbados.
Right.
And in those areas, from my research, those were transshipment places. So they said a lot of the English ships went from, the British mainland colonies, the 13 colonies. They will go collect their captives from the Caribbean because those 4 islands that I just named were transshipment spots. So they would grab our ancestors from West Central Africa and in the Senegambia area. And like you said, some of them went into the Congo, right? They was in the Congo and Angola and all. And so they would grab them and then take them to the Caribbean. But those 4 islands were known to be transshipment places because then they would start shipping them different places, from those islands. So I'm not surprised, Dr. Epha, that a lot of rebellions took place because that's where they were, transshipment areas. So what are your thoughts about that, Dr. Epha?
Right. I would say they're all transshipment areas. And if we look at Barbados is actually the really first slave society. This is where it was all set up. This is where you get the what was that thing called that tells you how to make a slave? What was this? It'll come to me. But anyway, the Lynch. Remember the Lynch letter?
Yeah, the Willie Lynch letter.
The Willie Lynch letter, right. And I've talked to historians in Barbados. I said, "Oh no, there's no such thing as a Willie Lynch letter."
That's what I heard. Yeah, I heard that too.
However, there are 4 plantations in Barbados by the Lynch family, and I did find a document in their archive that explicitly laid out how to punish your slaves.
Okay.
So it was pretty close. Right. So this would be your first rule slave society. And then from here, they were transported to other islands.
Absolutely.
Right. And poor Jamaica. Jamaica has so many revolts. They even had a ship revolt over here. You can't even see Jamaica for all the revolts they had. But yeah, this is one of the reasons. And there's a group, the African descendants of slaves, ADOS. They're pushing for reparations for Black Americans. And what they don't understand, that there was really no such pure Black American thing, because all the way up, even into the late 1900s, these people were moving from island to island. They were looking for jobs, right? They would be transported. They would be kicked out of islands. And one of the main places in America that they went to would be South Carolina. They would come from up here, then they send them there. So you have all kinds of movement going on in these islands. And of course, we know that the majority of African people were taken to Brazil. And you're correct. The lifespan was a couple of years, because the Portuguese didn't care. I think they were the worst of all, if you could measure. And so the largest population outside of Africa was Brazil. But something that I pointed out, it's not on this map, it's on the other map, was that after slavery, these countries undertook a policy called whitening. and they imported all these white people from Europe, gave them housing, education, jobs, money, and then the black population living there, they didn't give them anything. So now you go to Brazil, you have to look for black people. I'm serious.
No, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely.
Right, right.
Absolutely. And I just want to go back to Jamaica. There were a lot of, like you said, a lot of revolts there, even in Cuba, Dr. Ife.
Nice.
I've read that there, were some, revolts right there in Cuba, and I'm getting that from this particular book that I've read called "Flight to Freedom" by
Mm-hmm.
African Runaways and Maroons in the Americas, Alvin O. Thompson. So this is another good book if folks want to understand resistance in the
Right.
Maroons. But they say, yeah, it was a lot of rebellions in Brazil, a lot of them in Jamaica, a lot of them in
Yeah.
Cuba, a lot of them in Colombia. So they were revolting all over, and not just
Mhm.
revolting, leaving and starting whole towns. Dr. Ife, they burning down plantations and starting their own towns. And I'm talking about fortified towns of people who fought. Who left. They called it I call it, they say marinage. I call it maroonage. I'm probably
Maroon.
butchering it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
but it was called, you had grand maroonage where they left and they started towns. And that's what this author talks about, petite maroonage and also um, grand maroonage. One meaning that with petite maroonage, and I know some people say doc is not maroonage. They say marinage, but I always say maroonage. But petite maroonage is when you leave for a short period of time. Grand maroonage is when you're gone for a long period of time. But there were a lot of places that revolted and that set up, free towns, for
Right.
our fortified free towns for our ancestors. And so I was just wondering, oh, yep, I see your map. I see Cuba. Yep, Cuba.
Yeah. So what I did was I did not do maroons because you have to have parameters. And you can do an entire project just on the maroons.
That's a fact. That's a
You
fact.
know, there were so many. Only place where I really included the maroons is where they played a decisive factor in resistance. For example, in Guyana, that resistance lasted almost 2 years because they had the maroons there. Same thing in Jamaica. Well, that's another story with Jamaica. But where you had maroons, people could hide out, they could go and they could come back and forth, so they lasted longer. But no, I specifically so certain things I did. There was all kinds of resistance. There's slowdowns, there's poisoning the master, there's killing the masters. You could do a whole thing. I know one scholar's doing a whole thing on fires. They tried to burn New York down a couple of times. They would set fires, of course, running away. So there are many facets of resistance. But what I did specifically is I'm looking at revolts that were actually planned. And I start with inception because the punishment for thinking about revolting was just as bad as going on and having a revolt. All right. So I start with the inception, the thought of it, and then the strategy, how they carried it out, how long it lasts, how many people were involved, how much air. So, and just doing that, I'm just taking that slice. With that slice, I have 263 on land. So, if you add maroons and you add all those others, it was too much. And I mean, I just had to have a discussion with myself, we have to we have to contour this because it can go on and on and on. I was trying to find I haven't looked at it. In Cuba, there was actually a revolt that was led by a woman, Carlotta, and one of her friends, Fermina. They actually, now I would say just about every revolt I looked at, there were women involved.
Wait a minute, Dr. Ife. I need you to say that again. I'm sorry. I think it was some static in my headphones. Every revolt had what, Dr.
Oh,
Ife?
every revolt had women. Every one. But specifically, not only participating in, you had a number of revolts that were actually planned by women. And one, of course, no one ever asked for this one. Of course, I can't find it, but it's in Cuba.
Take your time, Mommy Faye.
It was two women who organized a revolt. Where is it? Havana. Of course, I can't find it. But anyway, that was just one of the many. Well, you look at Cuba, there were so many revolts there. But that was one of the ones that was involved by women. The other one, the one that people really like me to talk about.
St. Croix.
Oh, St. Croix was also by Mary.
Yep. Mary and Elizabeth and
right. It was three women, right?
Yep, and Mathelda McBean. They said they led it in 1878. You know, and they said which the city was burned. And I actually shout out to Baba Imhotep Fatiul. He put me on with that. I never heard of it until he shared that with me. So what was the other one?
And they actually, wait a minute. Is that St. Croix? Yeah. They actually have a statue in, where is it? Here it is. Here's a statue.
Wow.
Of the three women. Yep. They had riots. They turned it down. 879 acres were burned. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. 60 people were killed. 14 women died. Here's the stat. Yeah, this one is I'm thinking this one is in Europe. This statue of Mary. Yeah, I think that's in Europe. But anyway, yeah. So there was one in Guadeloupe that people really like because it's just 1802. And this was led by a woman. And I think I'm going to get some T-shirts made with her image on it for these young people.
Well, let me know. Let me know. I'll buy them. Let me know. I'll be right on here promoting.
Yeah, look at this image. That's something.
Wow.
She had to be about 7 months pregnant
when she led this revolt.
She led the revolt.
Pregnant woman.
Yeah, she was associated with a brother. He was a mulatto brother, but he was a militiaman. He had military training. His name was Douglas. And they lured 400 Frenchmen into a fort and then blew it up. 400 Frenchmen. All her people were killed, but she was captured alive and incarcerated. And when the baby was born, the baby was given to her master. And then she was tortured and killed. Yeah. She's going to be my poster child.
Pregnant sister. Pregnant sister.
Led a revolt. Yeah.
And there was something interesting you shared with us, the crowd, during the unveiling of the Enhanced John Henry Clark Project. You talked about during the Middle Passage, right? During that journey, you said when you were looking at the rebellions on the slave ships, or what they call them, the enslavers, when you were researching that, you said you noticed that most of the rebellions or the revolts didn't happen unless there were women on the ship. Could you expound on that, Dr. Epha?
Excellent. I forgot about that. Yes, the propensity for a revolt to occur on a ship was directly related to the number of women who were on the ship. Yeah, because oftentimes the women and children, because one revolt was a little boy. And he was on the deck. I guess they thought he was like a little mascot or something. But this was sad. The women were on deck and they could watch the crew. And actually, this is how many of the revolts happened. Black people just watched. They watched what white people were doing, because a number of the revolts were on holidays when the whites would get drunk. Easter, Christmas. Okay, but anyway, the women would watch the sailors. They could see when they took their shifts, they changed shifts, when they were sleeping, when they were drinking, where the munitions were kept. And that information was passed over to the men. So when the men freed themselves from the bottom of the ship, they came up and they knew where to get munitions and attack the crew.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that is a lot. People don't talk about women, our participation in leading, like you said, leading, sparking these rebellions and revolts and the things we do. You always hear about the men. It's always in
Mm-hmm.
Professor James Small, he talks about that all the time. He was like, I
Yeah.
don't do that male chauvinistic crap where you leave the women out of the picture. He was like, I don't do that. And so I give thanks for this sister, Nikki M. Taylor. She wrote a book, Brooding Over Bloody Revenge, where she highlights, our participation in these revolts and rebellions. So, family, make sure that you get this book, Brooding Over Bloody Revenge. Remember, Dr. Ife, I had texted to
Okay.
you when I
Okay.
met you. This is a
Right.
really
Right.
good book that highlights our participation
Right.
in the bloody rebellions, even with Nat Turner. I
Mm-hmm.
remember I had the honor, Dr. Ife, of going to going on the Nat Turner tour in oh my goodness, Southampton, Virginia. I was there with Baba Khalifa, and he took us, on the plantation, and when he took us to the courthouse where Nat Turner was hung, where they had a post, like a post outside the courthouse. He also mentioned there was a woman named Lucy who participated in the Nat Turner rebellion. So he mentioned
Mm.
Lucy, and Lucy was responsible. Her crime was this, and this is what they convicted her of. She held down the mistress of the house. And I think the mistress of the house eventually got away. I want to say she got away, but she like pinned her down, and she was getting ready to, do her thing. And she was getting ready to unalive her. I don't know if I could say, kill her
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube, but I know she was getting ready to unalive her. And they said she was tugging at her, and then another captive was tugging at the mistress. And so I don't know if the mistress, fled or if she ran. I don't know what happened, but that was her crime. And
Mm.
Baba Khalifa said that Lucy cursed those white folks all the way to the hanging post. She
Mm.
didn't apologize. She didn't beg for a life. They said she cursed them out all the way to the hanging post, and they hung her. But you don't hear stories
Oh.
about people like Lucy. A matter of fact, it's a famous painter by the name of James McGee. James McGee has a painting. I want to say, family, it's called Ride into Jerusalem. Somebody tell me in the chat. I see Dr. Samuels in the building. Doc, look up James McGee right now and drop that his famous painting. I think it was called Ride into Jerusalem. But Lucy is there in a blue dress, Dr. Ife.
Mm.
So Nat Turner and Nat Turner and the boys, Nat Turner's front and center, but you're gonna see a woman in a blue dress. That was Lucy. That was Lucy. So again, there were people who participated. There were women who did participate. There were women who did participate, in leading, like you said, leading these revolts and rebellions and aiding in them. But the women just don't get the credit. The women
Right.
don't get the
Right.
credit. And so that's why I always go out of my way to make sure that we keep the story accurate and we keep it balanced.
Right. Yeah. I just pulled up Marie Angelique. She's one of my favorites. She overheard her master say he was going to sell her because of her attitude, and she set Montreal on fire.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yep. And they caught her, and they punished her in unimaginable ways. I don't know
Oh.
what they did. They just tortured her and killed her.
Mm.
Yeah. Then you have Anna DeBangle. There's a lot of women. Of course, we all know about Nanny and the Maroons, but
Absolutely.
even the I'm telling you, Curacao. I'm thinking Tula and Curacao. His co-conspirator was a woman. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And
Yeah.
see,
So
that is the history that they
yeah.
don't that is the history, that isn't, it isn't taught. It isn't taught. Even the history of resistance isn't taught. Like I
Of
guarantee you,
course.
yeah, and I guarantee you, family, tell me this in the chat. How many of you have ever seen a map that you can access and pinpoint rebellions all over the world? African rebellions, African resistance
Of
all over the
course.
world. Nobody has seen this, Dr. Ife. No one has seen this. And this other map that you have, that talks about, you said colonial rebellions. You were talking
Yeah.
about it at the beginning.
Uh-huh.
Are you finished with that map?
Yeah. It's 85%. It's live. It's live. You go to the website, you'll see it's live. But here's the Tula. This is the rebellion in Tula, and the woman, they don't know her name, but she was a major strategist of that revolt. And this was a really good one. They went from plantation to plantation, gathering people up as they went along, and they got up to 1,000 slaves. Yeah.
And they responded in the chat. They said never. People said they've never seen a tool like this. So we thank you. We thank you, Dr. Epha, for this work that you're doing. We thank you. We thank you. And so you've researched a total number of how many, the map that we're looking at?
This one has 263 on land, and then I looked at 500 at sea. But then I told you, and your viewers who are in the Washington, D.C. area, the ship revolts. At the time I was working on this, 2018, I was president of African Heritage Studies Association. So I put the map on our website, and I don't know how the Smithsonian found it, but they found this map. And they accessioned the ships. So they have an exhibit now, before Trump closes it, called In the Wake of Slavery. And what they did is they paired objects. And I knew this was going to be controversial because they're showing not only slavery, but comparing it to what is the status of life today among Africans and African descendants. For example, they have slave shackles and handcuffs. And I asked them too, and this was last year. Yeah, I said, y'all know Trump is going to win. They're going to close this down. And they were like, oh, they were pretty smug about it. Well, this is academic. We're going to do it anyway. So they have it. And but it's an international exhibit. It's not part of their permanent collection. And it's leaving there in June and going to Rio, South Africa, Senegal, Belgium, and Liverpool.
And so the map is on the bottom floor, that first bottom floor.
Right. As soon as you go in by the gift shop, you take that escalator down.
Yes.
And right to your right is called In the Wake of Slavery. And in it, you'll see ship revolts, and you will see this part of the map.
Which part of the map? I'm sorry, Queen Mother. You said.
You'll see Africa and they have the whole world. I'm sorry. Yeah, they have everything, but you'll see all of the ships, but they have little white dots. But you'll see all of the revolts and
on the ships. And so you on this particular map, because I dropped the link in the chat, you're saying all of this happened on land. You didn't bring up the ones that happened on the ship. Is that correct, Dr. Epha?
No, it says 263 on land, and there were 500 at sea.
500 at sea, and that's what's on this map that we're looking at. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So what I did with the 500,
yes,
I melted it down to 58 because a lot of them only had like one thing, like crew killed.
Okay.
Right. People missing. So in order to give a more developed story, I combined them. So then you would see that.
I see now.
You would have more information on it. Oh, I forgot suicide. That's another form of resistance. However, I only included suicide when they took the white people with them.
Okay. So not just, I got you. Nothing like the Igbo landing or nothing like that.
Well, yeah, the Igbo landing, they did take some whites with them. So I
didn't know that, Doc. I didn't know that.
That's on here. Yeah, I do have the Igbo over here. And of course, that was on Beyonce's album.
I didn't know that either. I didn't know she put that out there.
Yeah, one of the images I use is from her album cover. What was the name? Lemonade.
Wow.
Yeah, Lemonade. That's the image she's using is from the Igbo landing. Yeah.
And so the ones on sea, I'm trying to look at. So when you zoom in, the ones at sea, you didn't make them. You didn't make them red, black, and green. Is that correct?
No.
Okay, they look kind of.
The
Yeah.
ships are blue, and it's kind of hard to see because it's blue on blue. But
Yes.
it's a darker blue. You see that? It's a darker blue.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to see. It blends in, but
Right,
that's
right.
why I asked you. I said, "Well, where does the revolts
Oh,
on see?"
oh, I'm
Because
sorry.
I couldn't see it even with my
Uh-huh.
glasses on. It was hard for me to
Oh, yeah.
see.
Here's another one. Let me just give this little tidbit. This one, you see, this one is near the coast because this is something else we don't really discuss is the second slave trade after 1808 when Africans were displaced from the South and sent across America.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of thousands of Africans were removed. So that's my map within a map. One of my colleagues called me Dora the Explorer.
I like that.
Because I have maps within the maps. Well, sometimes you need them, like Tacky's Revolt in Jamaica. They were all over the island. They didn't stay in one place. They moved
No,
from
they
place to
didn't.
place to place to place. So you had to put a map within the map so you could show it.
Wow, and I
Yeah.
never even heard of it. You said Decatur 1826. Never heard
Yeah,
of
the
it.
Decatur. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there were a
Never
lot
heard of it.
here. You see around America, we have a
Hmm.
lot. And uh mhm.
Yeah, and this is the history, Dr. Ife, that should be taught to our young
Right,
people.
right.
I gotta drop a bomb for you, Dr. Oh
You're
my
funny.
goodness.
You are funny.
You have blessed us with a tool,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Ife,
Thank you.
that we can utilize to teach our young people
Right.
about our resistance, all across the world. And so I just want to thank you from the
You're
bottom
welcome.
of my
Thank
heart for
you.
all of the work that you're doing. And I look forward to working with you creating these animations. I know you said that there was some
Yeah,
animations
yeah.
that you wanted to add. And so I look forward to working with you
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of them already
get
have
that done.
I have a lot of animations because my target audience is the young people or young
That's
people.
right. That's right.
So I want to keep them on the map. So I have a lot of animations and already and some videos to keep them so they don't know what is behind each marker.
Mm.
So you could just go all day and just hit different markers. They it was funny when I went to the Smithsonian when they accessioned. They said that they had a board meeting and they were all sitting in the boardroom with their laptops and they were just going from marker to marker.
Yeah, and I mean, Dr. Ife, me personally,
Uh-huh.
you said it's like 200 and what 63 on
Yes.
land and
Yeah,
about
yeah.
what you said 50 something.
I
So
put
you're
just
looking at you're looking at over 300 revolts, right, or
mhm,
rebellions. And
yeah,
I mean, like I would have my, every day, I mean, think about that. That's a rebellion per day that a child could study because you don't want to inundate them with too much, right? Like,
right, right.
but every day you can say, hey, go to this map, pick a
Hmm.
marker, and read
Hmm.
about this rebellion.
Right,
And just every day for one calendar year, let the child read and get that history. And so
right.
I think that what you're doing is amazing. I'm going to remove it from the screen. Dr. Ife, do you have any closing words for the listening audience? Is there any way that, do you need support from us? What can we do to keep this research going?
Well, what you can do is what I really need is you to go to the website, not only look at this map, but look at the new map, Anti-Colonial Civil Rights Movements. And you'll see some really interesting stories when you were talking about we're not our ancestors. We don't turn the other we don't turn the other cheek. I have some resistance in there. Your deacons for defense, and one minister had a gun in his Bible,
Come
and
on.
they had. I love this. They had enforcers. We're talking about not going to Target. They had enforcers who would stand in front of the store, men and women, and they would beat people up for trying to go in the store.
Absolutely. Like you said, the Deacons of
Yeah.
Defense, I think they were established in 1964. I read up on them and
Mhm.
yeah. And so like you
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
and they were armed. They were armed.
Right.
So
They
when
were armed.
people think that the civil rights movement was all
Right.
nonviolent, I'm like, man, you
Nope.
don't know your history.
Yeah,
You
so
don't
I
know.
would, yeah, go there and then you'll also see a tab for a survey. It's only 4 questions. So just take the survey for me.
Take the
And that
survey.
will really help me.
We could take the survey. And also, family, make sure make sure, family, that you visit her website. Okay, Dr. Epha Williams. Matter of fact, I have here it is, drefawilliams.com. So make sure, family, that you come over to her website, support the work, learn more about her, learn more about her. You will be hearing more from her. Doc, I'm bringing you back.
Yeah,
I'm bringing you.
we have
I'm
to
bringing
do
you
the other
back.
map.
I'm bringing you back, Dr.
Yeah.
Epha, and I'm going to make it down to the Smithsonian to check out that exhibit. You said
Oh,
it's right
good,
downstairs.
good.
You know, when you
Yes.
go downstairs. So I want to make sure that I go and check it out before the exhibit leaves.
Yeah,
So you want
six.
so our marching orders are to, you said, go to the website, take the survey, and then learn more about your work by going to your website. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. We appreciate you, Dr. Epha.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Mott. I really appreciate
I
this
really appreciate
platform.
you. Yes, ma'am. Peace and love to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all your listeners.
No problem. Peace and love. You so regal, Doc. You said, thank you, so regal. So regal, Doc. But thank you so much, Queen Mother. You take care.
Okay.
All right. Family, that was a wonderful interview. Come on, family. Y'all got to give it up for Dr. Epha, man. That warrior scholar brought that information. This is stuff, I'm telling you, when I first met her, I was blown away. When she sat there and showed a map and showed all of her research, and she was talking about these different rebellions, there were rebellions I never heard of. You know, you hear about the popular ones that's taught in literature, but there were rebellions I never heard of. And I said, wait a minute, this sister is tough. And so, family, that's when I reached out to her. I got a number. I ran up to her. I'm telling you, after her presentation, I ran over to her, honey. I fanned out. I ran over to her, got a number, showed her MELTREK. I was happy showing her MELTREK, and got a number and said, you have to come on my platform, you know, and bless us. And I feel like the interview with her tonight was just it's just a blessing. But guess what? We also got to bless each other. And so I'm going to bring up one more person. This is a sister. Her name is Shakti. This sister has been a warrior for our people, family. When I say a warrior, she's been a warrior for our community, a warrior against the system. And she reached out to me and she's like, Dr. Ma'at, she's like, I'm going through some things and I need some support. And I said, okay, I was busy running around. You all know I'm into 50 million things. I said, all right, sister, she said, did you see my post? I said, no, sister, I ain't see your post. So then I went to her post and I saw what was happening. And I said, we got to support this sister. So I'm going to bring up Sister Shakti. Sister Shakti, peace and love to you, beloved. How are you?
Peace and love, Queen Mother. I'm grateful to be here. I'm hanging in there. I'm positive. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Tell the family what's going on. And family, I'm going to be dropping the link in the chat. Tell the family what's going on with you, Sister Shakti.
Okay. So as Queen Mother said, I am someone who has committed the better part of 11 and a half years to the advancements of those of African descent here in the Americas. Clearly that has not been enough work, but it's my contribution that I don't regret. I am a single mother of 2 autistic children here in Detroit, Michigan. And as of lately, it seems as though my family has been under a heavy form of attack. About a week and a half ago, my elderly father fell ill to the point where they were struggling to get his body temperature regulated and his heart rate stabilized at the hospital. So that was the starting point. We rushed him to the hospital and things of that nature. And during that time, Child Protective Services showed up to my doorstep. Of course, I let them in. I have nothing to hide.
Right.
And they received a report of possible mold on my floors and repairs that needed to be done as far as holes in my ceiling and kitchen counters and things of that nature. And I was told at that point we would have to vacate the premises immediately. And they asked me to reach out to a family member. And I told them that's something I'm not really comfortable with doing, given that both of my children are autistic. My youngest baby is nonverbal. She cannot communicate verbally. She's known to run off and be an eloper, which is terrifying within itself and traumatizing.
Absolutely.
So CPS at that point offered to pay for 3 days at a hotel, and I told them afterwards I would be able to take that over for the most part, so my children would be safely housed during the process. And they told me, well, if you're not able to maintain your hotel fare and accommodations, you would either have to go to a shelter, or we would remove the children from your care. So I was thankfully able to secure us in a hotel for now. We're here, and I'm grateful for that. My children are stable. However, we do need some level of support with the repairs. My brothers and their contracting team have volunteered their services to do everything free of charge. However, we are falling a tad bit short on materials. I gave over all the financial, all the money I had. I gave it all over to them so they could at least get started. But yes, ma'am.
No, I'm saying I'm listening to you. I said, yeah, to get started. So you gave them the money, yeah, to get started. And so you want the community to donate. And family, she has a GoFundMe page. I have it right here. This is a GoFundMe page. I dropped the link in the chat. It's we gotta support people who support us, right? And that's what my art is about. It's about reciprocity, right? You got to support people who have supported you, and she's definitely supported me. So, Sister Shakti, I'm getting ready to donate right now, live, and I want my supporters to just donate what you can. $10, $20, $30. I mean, we spend $10 or $20 on a sandwich, right? On a sub, So can we all, family, please? This is a sister, and I don't just bring anybody on my platform. I don't bring the scammers, and I don't ask y'all. Dr. Ma, I don't ask nobody for nothing. I just ask you all to support the work and support the workers. And she's definitely been a trooper for us, and so we got to show up for this sister. So I dropped the link in the chat. Just now. I'm also getting ready to donate myself.
Thank you so much, Ashe, Queen Mother. Thank you.
No problem. I'm looking for it right now. It says, okay. Okay, hold on. I'm clicking, and I hope you all are joining me. I'm donating via PayPal. So it's different ways, use the credit card is PayPal. Well, let me see if I click the credit card. Let me see if I do it this way. I do PayPal.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
It's been a very trying time. It took a lot for me to come to the community for the support. Yeah, it took a lot for me to do that, but hey, I'm here. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
No, thank you. And I'm hoping that all goes well with you and your children. Hold on, I'm looking. Try to sign into this PayPal. I hope all goes well. You know what? I ain't gonna say I hope. We're gonna speak it. All is gonna go well. You and your children are gonna be fine. You have my support. Hold on. Yep, it's signing in now. It just sent me a code. Family, please write now. Somebody said, yep, Brother Dijon. Please, I love my brothers. He said, I got you right now, sis. Brother Dijon Ford said, I got you right now, sis. Appreciate you all. No problem. We got you. 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 So let me do this right quick. Make sure that we tighten you up, and I'll make sure. Let me see. Agree, and continue. There we go. Okay. So it came from my company, Ed Anime Productions. You should see that. I don't know what's gonna pop up, but it says finish sharing, continue. I'll share the link.
All praises, thank you so much.
No problem. No problem. I got you. You should receive something. You should get an alert. Okay. So we got you. We got you. We got you, Queen. Hold your head up, okay? You hear me, Queen?
Yes, ma'am.
Hold your head up. We got you. We got you. And keep us posted, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
No problem. No problem, Queen. You take care.
Okay.
Oh man, I know how that can feel, man. You know how you feel. You don't feel like people support you, and then when someone supports you, you feel it. And like I said, this sister has been a warrior for our people. And so, family, again, please join me. Please join me in donating to her GoFundMe campaign. Like I said, guys, you all know I don't bring just anybody up here to ask for no money and beg nobody for no money. But this is somebody that I know is a worker for our community, and I would not bring her here if she wasn't, right? I wouldn't even be asking you to donate, okay? And so I'm going to drop the link in the chat one more time for you. I had it up, so forgive me. I'm going to drop it one more time. Please donate. Please donate. Oh, you all are donating. I love y'all. Did I tell you I love y'all? Oh my gosh. Her GoFundMe went up $170 just now. Oh my gosh. Come on, y'all. Thank you. Come through to my audience family. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who donated. And thank you to the ones who couldn't, because it may be somebody in the audience who say, daggone, if I had it, I would, and I appreciate that. But her GoFundMe literally has gone up $170. So I do thank you all. And to the people who are not watching it live, you'll be watching in the archives. Please make sure that you donate to the sister. Her name is Sister Shakti. And okay, we call her Sister Shakti Sterner. And so she's on under Facebook under that name. So anyway, family, thank you all for tuning in. Please, before you get out of here, make sure you thumb up the video, thumb it up, thumb it up, thumb it up. Also share this video. We want to each one teach one. And the way you do that, family, is by simply sharing on social media. And also, family, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so that whenever I go live, you will be notified. And join me next week, family, at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace and Black African excellence.
Let's combat and fight back with MELTREK. The war of the minds, they want control of the masses. And Common Core, they dumb us down in the classes. Without knowledge, we can't gain access. Build with the elders, take notes and write classes. We keep whining on the block, how it's gonna stop? Let's start supporting our own, make their supply drop. We buy stocks, then we buy blocks. Cause we know the truth and we tuned in to Dr. Maya.